Morning, everyone. Are you listening, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so today I'm going to explain you the next topic, that is the threads and their management and multi-threading OS. As you know about the thread, the basic thing you very much know, it's a lightweighted code. Thread is a basic unit of CPU utilization consisting of a program counter, a stack, set of registers, and a thread ID. I think you very much know. So, if you are going to describe traditional heavyweight processes, that is, if you are going to take an account, this will have a single thread of control. So, there is one program counter and one sequence of instruction that can be carried out at any given time. So, if we describe the threads, thread of execution is the smallest sequence of programmed instructions that can be managed independently by a scheduler, which is typically a part of an operating system. So, multi-threaded applications have multiple threads within a single process, each having their own program counter, stack, set of registers, thread IDs, and but sharing common code, data, and certain structure. If you are going to describe it by the help of a diagram, you can check. We have this single threaded process and we have multi-threaded process. Means we are having only single thread in between in this process. So we have code, data, files, registers, tags, thread ID in this. But in this, you can check we have multiple code registers and stacks within a single, you can say, a multi-threaded process. So you are going to describe code registers, stacks individually for each thread. So we can describe the single and multi-threaded processes on behalf of sharing common code, data, and certain structures, such as you can say open files. So this is the overall structure. Now, what is the motivation that is basically described with respect to the threads? The threads are very useful in modern programming whenever a process has multiple tasks to perform independently of the others. So we have this multi-threaded server architecture which describe that if you are having a client, server, and thread, so how the client can give the request, there must be some creation of the thread to the particular thread for the servicing, and there is exactly resuming listening for additional client processes if we are having. So this is particularly true when one of the tasks may block and it is desired to allow the other task to proceed without blocking. So whenever we have this example, a web server, multiple threads allow for multiple requests to be satisfied simultaneously without having to service requests sequentially or to fork off separate processes for every incoming request. Okay, so the process we are going to describe on behalf of this just simplify that client give the request to the server and server create the new thread to the service request for the thread, and lastly it will resume listening for the additional clients for the different requests that are coming. So this is the multi-threaded server architecture which basically describe on behalf of this diagram. Now, what are different benefits? That is basically we are going to categorize it into the four different categories so that we can able to understand the benefits of multi-threading. Okay, so first one is that is responsiveness. Responsiveness just describe that one thread may provide rapid response while other threads are blocked or slowed down doing intensive calculations. If we are going to describe with respect to a responsiveness, that is describe a rapid response, okay, and that is shown on behalf of the intensive calculations. Second is resource sharing. You can say by default threads share common code, data, and other resources, as earlier we have discussed. which allows multiple tasks to be performed simultaneously in a single address space. So that is basically what we can say. It's a resource sharing. It is a benefit. Threads share resource of process easier than shared memory or message passing. Third is economy, means creating and managing threads. You can have the context switching in between, okay, is much faster than performing the same task for processes. So economy is one of the important benefit that is described on behalf of this, lower overhead related to the thread switching or context switching. Last one, that is the scalability, that is utilization of multi-processor architecture. If you are going to describe on behalf of a single threaded process, it can only run on the CPU no matter how many may be available, whereas the execution of multi-threaded application may be split amongst available processors we have in the system. So the single threaded process can still benefit from multi-processor architecture when there are multiple processes contending for the CPU. We can say when the load average is above some certain threshold, so it can be scalable. So it is the major benefit that is basically described with respect to multi-threading. We have multi-core programming. Multi-core, you very much know where we have the different cores in a single system. So multi-core programming. So multi CPU system we have, and multi-core systems. Multi CPU means multiple CPUs are placed in the computer to provide more computing performances. A recent trend in computer architecture is to provide chips with multiple cores. This is the multi-core systems or CPU on a single chip. So multiple computing cores are placed on a single processing chip where each core appears as separate CPU to the operating system. So this is one of the important multi-core system. Multi-threaded applications running on traditional single core chip would have to interleave the threads. If we are going to describe on behalf of the application with 4 threads on a system with a single computing core, concurrency means that the execution of the threads will be interleaved over time. If we are going to describe on a system with multiple cores, however, concurrency means that some threads can run in parallel because the system can assign a separate thread to each core. So multiple core programming just describe there is a fine but clear distinction between the concurrency and the parallelism. For operating system, multi-core chips require new scheduling algorithms to make better use of the multiple cores available. So the concurrent system supports more than one task by allowing all the tasks to be make progress. In contrast, a system is parallel if it can perform more than one task simultaneously. Thus, it is possible to have a concurrency without parallelism. You can see we have multi-core and parallelism that is described on behalf of some programming challenges uh, with respect to the system. So, its systems are placing pressure on the programmers. Challenges must be there, just like you can say dividing activities like identifying tasks. Second is balance. Third is data splitting. Fourth is data dependency. Fifth is testing and debugging. So, what is dividing activities? This is basically what examining applications to find activities that can be performed concurrently. That is dividing activities. Balance is finding tasks to run concurrently that provide equal value. Don't waste a thread on trivial tasks. So this is the meaning of the balance. Now, next is data splitting, and data splitting is one of the important aspects to prevent the threads from interfering with one another. So that is basically what we called as a data splitting. There must not be any interference. So to prevent threads from interfering with one another, we have to split that data. Next is data dependency.
Sharing class.
Data dependency is one task that is dependent upon the results of another. Then the tasks need to be synchronized to assure access in proper order. And that is basically what the dependency with respect to the data. So the testing and debugging, that is also the challenge that is described on behalf of the programmers and inherently more difficult in parallel processing situations, the testing and debugging. As the race conditions become much more complex and difficult to identify which task we have to perform. So we have list of challenges on behalf of the programmers and with respect to a system. Parallelism implies a system can perform more than one task simultaneously. That is we called as parallelism. Concurrency supports more than one task making progress. Single process or oblique core scheduling providing concurrency. So we have different types of parallelism that is basically described on behalf of data and task. So data parallelism, if you are going to describe, it distributes the subsets of the same data across multiple cores. Same operation on each means divides the data up amongst multiple cores, that is multiple threads, and performs the same task on each subset of the data. You can take an example, dividing a large image up into different pieces and performing the same digital image processing on each piece of the different cores, and that is basically described as data parallelism. And next is that is task parallelism. Task parallelism describe just distributing threads across cores, means we have to distribute it, each thread performing unique operation. So divides the different tasks to be performed among the different cores. This is one of the important cause, and performs then simultaneously. If it is performed simultaneously means task parallelism must be there. So in practice, no program is over divided up solely by one of the other of these, but instead by some sort by hybrid combination we can able to perform that. So a number of threads grows, so does architectural support for threading. CPUs have core as well as a hardware threads. Consider Oracle Spark T4 with 8 cores and 8 hardware threads per core. So this is basically what we have an example with respect to concurrency versus parallelism. If you are going to describe the concurrency execution on a single core system, you can describe a single core with respect to different tasks like T1, T2, T3, T4, then again T1, T2, T3, T4, then again T1, T2, T3, T4. So it will take the sequential process that will occur into the system. So for operating system, multi-core chips require new scheduling algorithms to make better use of the multiple cores available. So this is basically what we have with respect to the parallelism on a multi-core system. So T1, T2, T3, T4, four processes are there. That is described on behalf of core 1 and core 2 in parallelism on a multi-core system. So T1 perform simultaneously with the T2, and T3 performs simultaneously with the T4. So T1, T2, T3, T4, just like again T1, T2, T3, T4, and T1, T2, T3, T4, and so on. So with respect to the time, it takes less time while execution of the task on behalf of a system, but it will take more time. So that is must be described on behalf of the concurrent versus parallel. Now we have data and task parallelism. As earlier I have described that what is data parallelism. You can take an example dividing a large image up into pieces. This is the large image and you will divide into pieces, performing the same digital image processing on each piece on different cores. So this is basically what we have the data parallelism. So we have different cores and that is basically perform on the digital image processing, okay, with respect to the different cores. Now second is task parallelism. Task parallelism divides the different tasks. We have cores, different cores, core 0, core 1, core 2, core 3. So it divides the different tasks to be performed among the different cores, cores 0, core 1, core 2, core 3, and performs then simultaneously within the system. So that we called as a task parallelism. So this is the data and task parallelism that is shown by the diagram there. Now we have user and kernel threads. On behalf of describing the user and kernel threads, we have already been discussed in the process that what exactly the user thread and kernel threads supported above the kernel and are managed without kernel support primarily by user level threads library. Uh, User threads are supported above the kernel. That is basically what this is the kernel thread and this is the user thread. and these are threads that application programmers would put into the programs. That is the user space with respect to user thread. And second is kernel thread, which is supported by and managed directly by the operating system. That is the kernel thread, and which belongs to a kernel space, are supported within the kernel of the OS itself. All modern operating systems support kernel level threads. This, okay, allowing the kernel to perform multiple simultaneous tasks to service multiple kernel system calls simultaneously. So that is why a kernel thread will be described. Virtually all contemporary systems support kernel threads like Windows, Linux, or Mac OS X. So we have a different relationship between user and kernel threads, as shown many to one to one, many to many. So every time the relationship establishment between different user threads and to the kernel thread will be described on behalf of three different categories. So in the many to one, if we are going to describe on behalf of one to one relationship, this is a single kernel thread and a single user thread will relate to each other, and they will take part. Each user level thread maps to the single thread kernel thread, and creating a user thread creates a kernel thread more concurrency than many to one. So one-to-one is just like model creates a separate kernel thread to handle each user threads. This is a kernel thread which manages the user threads. One-to-one model overcomes the problem listed with respect to involving block system calls and splitting the process across the multiple CPUs. So we have the example that Windows or Linux number of threads per process sometimes restricted due to overhead. So this is one of the one-to-one model. Many-to-one model, we have many-to-one, just like many user levels threads are all mapped in onto the single kernel thread. We have single kernel thread, but we have different user threads in between. So thread management is handled by the thread library in user space. This is the user thread, and this is the user space, which simplify that user thread will be described on behalf of the user spaces. So the thread management is handled by the thread library in user space, which is very efficient, and that is basically described on behalf of the one thread blocking causes to all to block. Okay, multiple threads may not run in parallel on multi-core system because only one may be in kernel at a time. So however, if a blocking system call is made, then the entire process blocks, even if the other user threads would otherwise be able to continue. So we can have the examples like Solaris green threads or GNU portable threads. We have many to many model. Many to many, as very much know, we have many user threads and many kernel threads in user space and kernel space respectively, and that allows many user threads to be mapped to many kernel threads at the same time. So the many-to-many model multiplexes any number of user threads onto an equal or a smaller number of kernel threads, combining the best feature of one-to-one and many-to-one models. Okay, users have no restrictions on the number of threads created because we have many user threads, we have many kernel threads. Blocking kernel systems do not block the entire process. So processes can be split across multiple processors. It is one of the specific advantage. Individual process may be allocated variable number of kernel threads depending on number of CPUs present and other factors. So we have this that we called as a many-to-many kernel thread model with respect to many users as well as many kernels together. Now, one popular version that is basically described with respect to many model is the two-level model, which we also called as two-layer model, two-tier with respect to the two levels. Okay, two-tier model, which allows either many-to-many or one-to-one operation. You can see we have this user threads and kernel thread many-to-many. Here we have many user threads. Here we have many kernel threads, but here we have single user thread, here we have single kernel thread. So it simplify on behalf of both different methods, which is basically allow on behalf of either many to many or one to one operation. We have examples like Erex, HPUX, 264, Unix, Solaris 8, and earlier versions. Okay, so we have now next is that is thread libraries. We have different thread libraries on behalf of providing programmers with API for creating and managing threads. So thread libraries provides programmer with an API with respect to the creation and management of the threads, various threads. Thread libraries may be implemented either in user space or in kernel space as simplify which is possible. The former involves API functions implemented solely with user spaces with no kernel support, and the later involves system calls and requires a kernel with thread library support. So we have two primary ways to implementing this library entirely in user space, kernel level library support by the operating system. So if we are going to describe, we have three primary threads libraries. First one we call as POSIX threads, P threads, that is the POSIX threads. What is the exact meaning of POSIX? That is Portable Operating System Interface for Unix, and it is a family of standards specified by IEEE Computer Society for maintaining compatibility between operating systems. So pthread just describe the POSIX threads on behalf of the system, and it is basically simplify on behalf of IEEE Computer Society for maintaining compatibilities between the operating systems, so that it can be described on behalf of the. Okay. Now we have the second one, that is Windows threads. Windows threads, just like you can say, just like it describe the threads on behalf of the window operating system, and similar to pthreads, and example with respect to differences and most syntactic and nomenclature will be described on behalf of Windows threads. Okay, we have Java threads, that is pthread. We have POSIX threads. We have also discussed with respect to that. Okay, POSIX thread just like may be provided either as a user or kernel level. POSIX you very much know on the portable operating system interface for Unix, that is described on behalf of that. It is specification. It will be described on behalf of specification, not by implementation. So this will be simplified on behalf of pthreads. So next is that is basically on behalf of the example of the pthread, that is multi-threaded C program, which is basically described on behalf of the runner method. Pthread program separate threads begin executing in a specific function in a program. This is runner function. Okay, so runner function will be described on behalf of pthreads. Global variables are shared amongst all the threads, that is described by pthread. It is define the specification for pthread, not the implementation it will describe. And one thread can wait for the other to rejoin before continuing. And that is basically one of the important aspect of the pthread. Pthread begins execution in a specified function. You can take an example of the runner function, that is the runner method. When this program starts, a single thread of control begins in main method. After some initialization, main method creates a second thread that begins control in the runner function. Both threads share the global data. It is the simple pthread example in C language, which is shown with respect to pthread.h and stdio.h, the same which we have. Pthread code for joining 10 threads. So this is the example program that is shown on behalf of that. We have 10 different threads, which is basically described on behalf of this pthread code for joining 10 threads. Now, what is Java thread? As you very much know, the Java threads are managed by the Java Virtual Machine. As the name JVM, this is the virtual machine that enables a computer to run Java programs as well as programs written in other languages that are also compiled to Java bytecode. As you know, whenever Java is a platform independent language, so Java bytecode will be generated so that it can be independent. So typically implemented using the threads model provided by underlying operating system, whichever it will be. Two techniques for creating threads in a Java program. Uh, you have one approach is to create a new class that is derived from the thread class. and to override its run method. Okay, so second is an alternative is to define a class that implements the runnable interface. This is the interface, and it is the runnable, which is basically described as an interface. Publicly, it will be described. The publish abstract void run method will be described on behalf of. So when a class implements a runnable, it must define a run method like this. The code implementing the run method is what runs as a separate one. So Java multi-threaded program, that is simplify. Note that the JVM runs on the top of the native operating system, and the Java virtual machine specification does not specify what model to use for mapping Java threads to the kernel threads. So Java multi-threaded program, which shows the multi-threaded program that determines the summation of a non-negative integer. The summation class implements the renewal interface. Then thread creation is performed by creating an object instance of the thread class, then passing the construction in the renewal object. Now, implicit threading. What is implicit threading? That is the growing in popularity as number of threads increase program correctness, more difficult with explicit threads. So implicit threading is creation and management of the threads done by compilers and runtime libraries rather than programmers. So if we are going to describe it by the help of this implicit threading, we have different methods that explode thread pools, fork and join, OpenMP. We have Intel thread building blocks, Grand Central Dispatch. We have lots of things that is basically described on behalf of the library package, that is java.util.concurrent packages. On behalf of that, Microsoft threading building blocks will be described. So we have lots of things, that is a thread pool. Thread pools creating new threads every time one is needed, and then deleting it when it is done can be inefficient and can also lead to very large number of threads being created. So create a number of threads in a pool where they await work. So advantages must include usually slightly faster to service a request with an existing thread, can create a new thread, allows the number of threads in the application to be bound to the size of the pool. So an alternative solution is to create a number of threads when the process first starts and put those threads into a thread pool. Threads are allocated from the pool as needed and returned to pool when no longer needed. When no threads are available in the pool, the process may have to wait until one becomes available. So this is basically what we have. Windows API supports thread pools. We have, and this is the function that is written with respect to this avoid param. Now here we have fork join parallelism that shows with respect to the diagrammatic representation. That is the fork join main method. We have fork functions with respect to different tasks, and we have join functions, and we have the main thread. So main thread will describe on behalf of creating the child processes and joining these child processes into a single one that comprises on behalf of the main thread. So fork join parallelism must be there on behalf of different tasks performed on a single system. This is the fork join in Java with respect to different tasks. At the same time, it describes a diagrammatic representation which shows you the fork and join operations methods with the same particular example. Now we have different threading issues that relates. We have different questions and answers on behalf of that. So if one thread forks, is the entire process copied, or is the new process single threaded? This basically describe on behalf of the system dependency. Okay, if one thread forks, is the entire process copied? It is the question. Or is the new process single threaded? So the answer is that it must be system dependent. Okay, whatever will be the situation, it depends on the system. The second question arises that if the new process exits right away, there is no need to copy all the other threads. If it doesn't, then entire process should be copied. So the answer is many versions of Unix provide multiple version of fork call for this purpose. So this will be helpful for the execution. So we have lots of semantics of the fork and execution system calls. Single respect to the system.